All right. Good evening. Welcome to Curtis Lake Prime Time. It's Wednesday night again, so here we are, and I am joined by the ever-growing, more notorious Jim Schaefer.
Ever-growing.
And special guest Annie Albert tonight here with us. Hello, Annie.
Hi.
Thank you for joining us.
Yes, thank you.
You have absolutely no idea what you're getting yourself into, but
No clue.
I promise it won't be too bad. So those of you out there that are listening in either on Facebook or on Curtis Lake Church Online, like always, want to let you know that you can interact with us here on the panel by typing in comments if you have any questions or anything to share, and we think it's worthy of actually putting it on the air, then we'll do that. So a lot of times because we run out of stuff to say ourselves. But so we're going to spend a little time talking about Sunday's message and a little bit about the video from the Road Trip to Truth series that we've been looking at. So we'll do that in a little bit. But first, I want to just give Annie a little opportunity to tell us about yourself. There may be some people out there that don't know who you are and how awesome you and your family are. So tell us what's going on in the Albert world.
That's frightening. Yeah. Okay. So I'm Annie Albert, former Palmatessa, born and raised in Sanford. Tyler and I live in Albert World, which is basically chaos, absolute chaos. No, we live in Alfred. Yeah, so I'm married to Tyler. He sings on stage. He's a great singer. Oh, that's
the voice of an angel.
Picture.
Oh, there they are. Yeah.
I didn't even know. Fun fact, didn't even know he could sing. We were married for like almost, 8 years. Just like randomly was like, oh wow, you have a great voice. That's weird. Never knew that.
He was dancing all the time.
Yeah, he has
Big-time
great
dancer.
moves. That's what like got me.
Right.
I mean, in high school, it didn't take much. So, but yeah, we have 2 kids. They're pretty cute. You saw the picture.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I see Levi multiple times throughout the day.
He's fun.
He runs up to me. Hi, Mr. Josh.
Stop talking, Josh.
That's only on Sunday mornings. Yeah.
Josh talks a lot.
Yeah, he sure does. He sure does. But tonight you're going to talk a lot. So
What else is new?
are they at home watching? Do you know?
Probably not, because Sam was an absolute disaster before I met. Good luck. Peace be with you, Tyler. At home doing bedtime alone. Levi might be awake because he's a little older. He can hang. But I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I imagine Tyler must be monitoring the conversation here. So
I'm
there's
sure.
nothing too embarrassing that's
He loves.
brought up, but we will try to bring out a little more
All the goods.
from the family. So we did extend an invitation for Tyler to come as well. And he said he'd rather stay home and watch the kids.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we'll see how that goes.
He would probably come sometime. Yeah. He'd probably do it.
Nice. So anything else? Anything else you want to share? Like, what do you guys do for fun?
Good question.
I know you go camping. I know you do that because
We're a great camper.
you guys are fantastic campers. On a scale of 1 to 10, you're like a 9 when it comes to camping.
I mean, yeah. Tyler had to bring his full-size grill.
That's true. He did. Yeah.
I think we're pretty committed. Yeah, we camp. We've actually haven't done very much camping. We'd like to do some more. We have lots of land where we live, so we like to spend a lot of time outdoors. Right now, my whole family is completely into trimming apple trees.
Oh,
Because we have inherited with this land a lot of apple trees, and they're a lot of work. It's actually kind of fun, though. So that's literally been some of the pastime.
yeah. Like, are there going to be some good apples this fall, you think?
I have absolutely no idea. We have no idea what we're doing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They
Do you
could
know if the
become
trees have been
holy-
producing nice apples prior to you being there?
Last year,
were they neglected?
They're very neglected.
Oh, they are. Okay.
They're super neglected. So that's one of the reasons. That's like, yeah, they need a lot of
Kind of
love.
like your kids tonight.
Completely. Absolutely. 100%. I mean, I love you, Tyler.
Yeah. Cool.
What's your hidden talent?
Ooh, hidden talent. I was a really good, dancer, and I did gymnastics for a really long time. Talents now?
Are you saying gymnastics goes away?
I mean, I definitely am a little out of shape.
Shayna, do we have any old Annie
Nope.
gymnastic videos?
She has no pictures of me in gymnastics. Shayna, if you want to be friends after this,
All right.
you will not
All
put them up. I don't know. I don't really have any like hidden talents. They're all out there for the world.
Fair enough.
Drinking coffee.
Wow, that's amazing.
It is. It is a talent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tyler plays a little golf too.
Tyler plays a little golf.
I haven't gotten out there with him yet, but hopefully.
He plays more hockey
get to
than
do that.
golf.
Yeah.
Yeah, he plays
Like ice hockey?
Yeah.
Like actively?
Um,
Like plays in a league or anything, or just?
he plays a lot. Well, I shouldn't say a lot, but he plays quite a few like pickup games
Oh, okay.
in a men's league that he really enjoys. He actually coaches the Burke Academy JV.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so he's
I
really.
didn't know that. All right.
Yeah.
So he can probably skate backwards.
He's like an excellent skater.
Is he? That's the
He has
thing I'm missing.
a lot of talents. He's a lot more talents than I do.
Really?
Yeah. I'm much more articulate though.
Yeah.
Those are my talents.
Okay. You're the talker.
Yeah.
All right. That's why we have you here tonight.
That's why he's at home.
Jim, what about your hidden talents? I don't know
Mini
if we've
golf.
heard about
Mini golf.
mini golf. That's right. You had a big week this
I
week.
did. It was, a lot of training, and you pour yourself into something for years at a time, and you finally get your moment. And when you come through there by one stroke on the 18th hole, especially after you blow a 4-stroke lead after 16.
It was getting a little tense.
It did.
I love this picture.
Oh yeah. So this
it
is
is.
Jim with his prize trophy for the first annual Curtis Lake Church
Yes,
staff
it was.
miniature golf outing.
I've never seen a gallery like that before. I mean, they marched right down 18 right behind me like I was Tiger or Phil Mickelson or something. It was very special for me and my family.
Well, I'm glad. We were
I
able
couldn't
to
I
make
couldn't do that
moment
sort of thing
possible.
without Mallory and Faith really supporting me in my miniature golf habits, and that's so.
I wish I could
There
see
they are right
Mallory's
there.
reaction right now. I just,
Are you kidding? She doesn't watch
I'm
this.
dead.
Actually, I tell you what, Faith is really the only one that supports any sort of miniature golf
Yeah.
activity.
So where's the trophy currently residing?
It is currently in my office downstairs. but
Oh,
it
that
is
hasn't
going-
made its way home yet.
No, it's going to go in the foyer.
It's not.
in the Curtis Lake store.
No, I promise you, it's not.
It's not.
It's not. That's not.
Why not?
Why?
Well, it won't fit for one thing.
I already checked.
It does fit?
It absolutely will.
Wow, that's a small
and,
trophy.
And I think Sharon hinted that she specifically made it so that it would fit with the
Really?
intention that
That's going to
somebody
be your Curtis Lake
I
story.
better see that on Sunday.
It's a pretty good story, yes.
All right. Well,
So I mean, it will make its way to some sort of a shadow box that I'll keep more permanently on display somewhere. But for right now, it'll be more publicly enjoyed
yeah.
for the people.
So, well, congratulations again.
Thank you.
I'm not sore at all.
Bravo, Jim.
Yeah. Yeah. I haven't been on the golf course with Jim yet either. So that's
Look out.
I'm sure that's where I'll have my revenge one of these days.
That is a fair assumption.
All right. So Jim preached this past Sunday. How did he do? First of all, I wasn't here, so
He did great.
did he? Did
I was
he?
a big
like
fan.
honestly, like
No,
we'll mute his headphones so he can't hear what you're saying.
I mean, he's really young. He's sitting right here. I feel like he'll hear me. No, he actually did do a good job. I'm always going to comment though on whatever someone is wearing on the stage because I love it. Your tie,
You love the tie?
outstanding.
Because I received a communication card from somebody out there that did not like the tie.
Rude.
I'm not
I was
gonna.
a huge fan.
I'm not gonna.
Personally
I'm
handed
not
you a
gonna.
communication card that said I don't like
It
your
made
tie.
it did make its way to me. I'm not gonna say.
We do read the communication.
I'm not gonna
cards,
say the
people.
person's name, but it started with Justine Williams and do justice for the Sam Sunday morning message, and hope it had some meaning for some people.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
It was interesting because I saw like maybe a day or two ago I feel like Brett Williams shared this on his Facebook, and I just thought this is so true. Said something about how like we're saturated with information but starving for wisdom. I was like, oh yes. So I've really been enjoying this, like just reading through Proverbs. I haven't read through Proverbs, I feel like one, way too long, but two, not really in-depthly in a really long time. So I'm loving it.
Yeah, I had a friend in school who memorized the book of Proverbs, which would be kind of like if you were going to
No, that-
memorize
Out of all
a book
the
of the
books.
Bible, it'd be a pretty
That's-
fun one to do, I think.
That's
because
pretty good.
There's some
It'll come in handy.
Yeah. There's some quippy sayings
Well, I was
there
about to
that might
say that's also
come up in
like
a
to
conversation.
be quick-witted. just immediately respond to people with proverbs.
Exactly.
That's impressive.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. So, well, our proverb for this week was Proverbs 13:12. Walk with the wise and become wise. Associate with fools and get in trouble. So obviously a big part of the kind of the topic of conversation is just how we gather our friends over a lifetime and who we're kind of spending our time with and the influence that has on our lives. I'm sure we could probably talk about all kinds of stories about the influence that other people have had on us, over the years, and just the part that plays into our overall lives. I was thinking it from this angle, like, where does wisdom come from? The easy, fast, churchy kind of answer is, well, wisdom comes from the Bible, right? That's where we get wisdom from. Read the Bible and you'll grow in wisdom. And while I think that's true, I mean, how much wisdom do we collect over our lifetime from other people?
Absolutely.
So much.
Or not a lot, depending on who you're spending your time.
Well, and then there's that.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd hope so much, like over time. I do feel like too. We were talking about this the other day. It was so interesting at work. Super random about wisdom. I work for a pediatric dentist, so not necessarily something that like comes up regularly, but it was so in tune with just kind of like what we've been talking about on Sundays, and it was interesting. Someone was like saying how we have one of the girls that I work with, she's very young. She's probably 21, 22, but she's very, very mature. Just, you can tell, like, she's just a naturally, like, wise person. Like, she's just very, and so I always wonder, I'm like, oh, it's so nice to be just, like, born. You know what I mean? To a certain degree. Some people really are just born and they are just, like, have an old soul about them.
Yeah.
Like, they're wise. I just love that. I don't know if certainly not everyone has that.
I mean, to some degree, it's a talent. Like we introduced the whole topic of wisdom, and again, I just going back to the Hebrew word that we translate wisdom. It does convey this idea of skill for living life. And so you think about the talents that a person exercises in some particular sport. It's like, oh my goodness, what an amazing basketball player. Just look at the natural ability, first of all, that person was born with, right? That they've obviously honed as well to, get them to this certain level of performance. And wisdom is like that. And for some, it seems like it comes really, really naturally and really easily. And for others, it seems like it just can't get out of their own way when it comes to life. But it really does require, I think, to live successfully in this world, which is complicated, right? We're inundated with complicated situations, complicated relationships, right? You got any of those? I mean, just
Couple.
like people that are, some of them live in your neighborhood now, right? I understand. So,
Stones thrown away.
and you just can't get away from them. No. But we gotta, like, how do you deal wisely in just these variety of circumstances that we find ourselves in? I was also thinking about just the passive way in which we are influenced in our lives. Like, how often do you ever think about what's influencing you? And what is influencing you?
I haven't thought about that in a while.
Yeah, well, think about it for a second.
I'm just kidding.
And then...
When I was a teenager, I was forced to think about it a lot.
Were you?
I wasn't naturally a wise child.
You were not?
I wasn't.
Oh, okay.
No.
All right.
Something that's come with time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how did that,
Yeah.
for example?
I was hanging out with people like Shayna Richer. No, I'm
Okay.
just kidding.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's true. It's funny because I always think about Jay Saunders was my youth leader at one point, and he used to talk about this when we would listen to like music that was, wildly inappropriate, and he would always give us like the guilting, like, you shouldn't be doing this type of like youth leader, response. And he used to always say this, and we used to make fun of him, of course, because like we were teenagers, and he'd be like, who does it glorify and what does it edify? And I was like, Jay. And now like, I'm an adult, and I'll be listening to like a podcast or just whatever, social media, scrolling through my feed, and I'm like, this is absolute garbage. Like, and I always think about him saying that, like, in my mind, I'm just like, oh, Jay. But it's like genuinely helpful, because after a while, it's true. You scroll through too many things, and boy, your mind starts to wander. Things just start to happen. So, yeah. Influence is big.
Yeah.
And it only takes a couple of minutes, I feel like, to hang around with a certain type of person where you can get so sucked in, right, to like a community, a friendship, a relationship so quickly. Because usually those types of relationships that you get sucked into, like, they're enticing. There's something about it that keeps bringing you back. It's attractive. There's something to it. It's like, how do you use, right? That's when wisdom comes in, to be able to take a step back from the enticing and say, wait, like, what's happening here? Is this healthy? Is this good?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what would you point to as, what is that? What is the thing that's influencing your life? Or what are those things that you feel like are most influencing your lives, which maybe they're not even top of mind, right? Because I think a lot of things out there have the ability to influence us without us even really realizing it. I mean, if you spend hours and hours in front of the television, I mean, there's going to be a level of influence that's going to have on you, right? Depending on kind of what you're watching and what you're feeding yourself. So, how are you regulating or trying to be mindful, if at all, of what's influencing you?
Well, we just don't have cable at our house. So that's one way that we've limited influence in our home.
Jim's like, I made this easy.
Yeah.
Jim built a wall.
Yeah. I build walls.
Yeah.
Just cut things straight out. No, I don't know. I'm boring like that though. If I see something as a waste of my time, I tend to just try to cut it out entirely. And it's easy to point out the more visible examples like social media, just being careful about who you're following on there, how much time you're spending just scrolling your feed, or how much time you're just sitting in front of the media, left or right, and just letting that just passively wash over you and influence you and your frame of mind and your mood and everything else, and also your worldview. But as well as that, just by nature of even if no matter what the medium is or the reason why you're being exposed to something, if you spend enough time in front of something, it is going to have influence on you. And an example that I always sort of reach back to is when I was in seminary, there were just like with any graduate program, there's just so much reading. And there were certain books that we were required to read for courses that it's like these guys sort of like theological treatise, whatever, it was like 500 pages of this guy's writing in 8-point font. I'd just say, and I'd read through the introduction and, listen to this guy thank everybody that he knew for, the first 25 pages, and then read the first chapter and realize I'm going to be exposing myself to this person's viewpoint for the next 500 pages. I think I'm just going to skip this. It's just because you can get really thrown off track. I mean, you take that time that you could just spend reading Proverbs and reading the Bible and just think about the simple aspects of our faith, and take that much time times 20, and somebody's really out there, just deep, complex thought process. It can really just sort of wrap you around the axle with some stuff and waste your time. And then you come out on the other side of that with, who knows what you picked up in there? Maybe good, maybe bad, whatever, maybe indifferent. But it's just that amount of time and influence. I guess my point is it can come from a lot of different places.
can be dangerous too.
Right.
Yeah. I feel like influence. I mean, obviously who you hang out with, like, definitely plays a role. I feel like maybe, I don't know, maybe Jim. I feel like you two aren't like this, but I'm just going to say it. I feel like I really, I feel like you guys are okay to be like, nah, I'm okay to not be friends with everybody. But I feel like sometimes that's something like I always struggled with. Like, I really wanted to be liked by everybody for a long time. I just really cared about like what, maybe not. Oh, maybe Jim's nodding. Maybe Jim feels this. But like, that was really hard to be like, I don't need to be everybody's best friend, you know? Like, it's okay to have, you know, 3 or 4 really good, solid friends. And not that means you're not nice to people, but like, that's okay. That took me a really long time to figure out. And I like exhausted myself. And with sometimes the wrong friends, like, just didn't need that in my life. It was like toxic, you know? It was just like, and I didn't really know how to walk away because I really cared too much about what other people thought. So yeah, people, it's a big one.
Yeah, never mind how you have to also kind of break yourself apart and really be inauthentic with yourself, depending on, you know, where I am with these people, right? And like what I think
Exhausting.
or perceive their expectations are of me, right? And I want to kind of fit in and be accepted there. But then, you know, now I find myself in this other environment with people that are different from that. And, you know, now I got to kind of act like this. And
Yeah, it's exhausting.
yeah, right. Because you just, you're carrying on these multiple personas, right? Trying to ultimately please everybody.
Yeah.
And for what?
Right. And you end up leaving with a lot of really shallow friendships, right? Like nothing really deep, you know. And then you start questioning like, well, who am I? Like, if I'm able to be, right, like around all these people and need to, you know, like cater or change or, you know, walk on eggshells or maybe, or just whatever, like, it's exhausting. And then you're like, ooh, this is not life-giving at all. This is draining and not fun. Yeah. I feel like Levi was like a baby I had and was like very hormonal, shocking. And someone was like, shared with me a piece of advice. I don't remember what it was. I was like so nervous to feed him in public because he would cry because he was Tyler, but in a little baby form. He would cry every time he took his bottle away. Well, he told people, it was like, he has burp rage. And I used to be like, so, like, it made me so anxious. I would just be like, oh my God, I can't feed him in public. I'd be like feeding him a bottle and then I'd be burping him. He'd be like, screaming his head off. And I was just like, oh my God, everyone thinks I'm a bad mom because my baby's screaming. Oh. And I would just like get so emotional about it and so hormonal. And someone was just like, I don't remember who it was. I wish I remembered. Oh, it's going to come to me one day. They were like, don't worry. Like, why are you so worried about what other people think? I was like, I don't know. That's a great
That is a good question. Yeah.
And then I just started exploring that. And I was like, I have no idea. I need to stop caring a little bit more. And yeah, I just like went on this like whole journey on like caring less and putting more energy into quality of friendship and not quantity.
Right.
And it's been very helpful.
Yeah. And what about the positive side of influence too, where you know, one of the things that I'm a little speculative of are, you know, the people that they take authenticity to this whole different level, right? It's, you know what, I'm just going to be me. This is me in the raw, and this is me keeping it real, right? And it's almost as if they can't even receive maybe the positive influence that friends could ultimately provide, or that wisdom could provide. They're more interested in just persisting in their authenticity without any regard for, it's like, well, that authentic version of yourself really isn't the best version of yourself. Yeah. And that could use a little sharpening. Right. And I think that influence can play a really, really important part in us in that regard too. I mean, that's that first part of the proverb, right? Walk with the wise
Right.
and become wise. Just by sheer association,
Right.
Yeah.
right? And being near people that live wisely and that exude wisdom, that actually just starts to raise your base level of wisdom up.
Yeah, those relationships are really hard to come by because I feel like people nowadays, they like the idea of authenticity, but I think when the reality of it like hits them personally and they're, faced with maybe like a little bit of accountability, it's hard. Like nobody likes that, but like that's hard. And finding like friendships that like it's okay and like when that I'll give you my friendships for example. So I have like a very close group of friends that Shane is one of them. Shayna, Sarah, and Cassandra. Whoop, from the back. And
Like, I made the cut.
She's like, yes, I made
Because
it.
you were talking about like just wanting a handful of friends. I was going to put it out there that maybe you were looking to enlist.
Your top
No.
eight MySpace friends.
Oh my gosh. I forgot about MySpace. I want to go back now and look at my account and see who made the list. I'm sure my mom and dad were on there. They'd still be on there. But like, yeah, we've had to have a lot of conversations that have been really hard. Really hard friendships or conversations in those friendships. And I'm so thankful that like we left them better. Like no one walked away being like, she doesn't like me anymore because she doesn't agree with me, or whatever it was. It was like, we've always walked away from it just being like, we love you, we care about you, we want growth. Like there's such a genuine level of care for the other person that like when someone comes, to one of us or whatever and it's just like, hey, I see you're doing like this, I'm gonna caution you. I love that. I love that like I have a friend or several friends who will just like call me out, and I know it's not coming from like this place of like judgment and condemnation or anything like that. Like they care about me and love me enough to just say like, I don't think that's good for you. Like I'm going to pray for you. Let's think twice about this. Like, what's going on? Like, and they walk with you. Like, those are the type of friends, like, you want.
Yeah, that was that piece I tried to emphasize about the things that we can look for in wise friends and just that accountability piece. And that's so big. You just described it perfectly.
Hard. It's hard.
Yeah.
And I think that it's messy. And I think people don't always want that, right? Like, it's scary. I know, like, this is so funny. I know we had, like, this was probably a couple of months, I don't know, maybe a couple of months ago, but I had a friend and I was just like hurting. I was frustrated by something and I just, saw something and I was like so petrified. I was like, how do I approach her? Because my biggest thing was I was just like, I don't want to hurt her feelings, but this is going to do damage to her. Like I can see it. And because I'm outside of the situation, I can see it. And I was just like, how do I approach it? And I just prayed about it for so long because I was like, ooh, I don't want to walk. It's scary to be vulnerable. It's scary to like go into that conversation not knowing how that other person is going to perceive it or how they're going to be able to receive it or if they're even in a place to. And I just remember being like, I think this is a good time. Like, I don't know. And like, it was fine. Like she was so thankful. Oh my gosh, thank you so much for telling me. Like, thank you so much for being honest with me enough.
Yeah.
And I was like so relieved. I was like, oh, see, I was like, that was okay. I was getting so worked up over nothing. But I was like, I think that people want that, even though it's frightening. But I think that there is a level of like, we want it and we need it, even though it is pretty freaky.
So how did you, I mean, how did you ultimately find yourself in these relationships? Like, so like what I'm hearing is that there's this little group, of women that's formed,
Yeah.
that's very, very tight, right? was that an accident?
No. Our parents all went to the same church.
Who didn't make it, right? Like, where's the fifth girl? What happened to her? And she just didn't make the no. But
Yeah.
like, how did
we literally, our parents all went to the same church.
Okay.
They all went here. Yeah, I mean, we grew up together in youth group. We were very close growing up. We had a lot of life situations come up where, we bonded to each other to kind of help get us through family situations, death, like just life. We just experienced life together, just like any, whatever community or close group of friends did. But I think what's so nice, like, I'm so proud to say that, like, I'm almost 30 years old. Shayna's 30 years old. Shayna is 30. And Shayna's the oldest one out of our group. I just like to remind her. And I'm the youngest. And
which could also, refer to the levels of wisdom.
Shayna's the wisest.
The wisest and the foolishest.
She is pretty wise. Yeah, and like it's just like so refreshing. I love that like we're still friends, but that did not come easy. And there were totally seasons of our life where, she was in college, like we didn't talk for a long time just cuz, and even like one of our friends, Sarah, now, she's in a different season of life. Like the three of us, we have young kids and we're married, and like she's in a relationship, but like different seasons, but we've still managed to like put in the work. And like, I love Sarah, because she like even called us out on it the other day. She was like, listen, you guys, you got together and you left me out. And I was just like, oh my gosh, thank you so much for like telling us. Like, thank you for not letting it bother you. Thank you for being like brave enough to say like, hey, this bugged me. Cause like, let's face it, that's how friendships get dissolved.
Oh, yeah. Right.
From silly misunderstandings or just like things, right? Life comes up and you're in different seasons and maybe someone's putting in more effort than another or whatever. And I just love that this group of friends, like we have a lot of grace for one another because like we need it. And there's a lot of accountability, and yeah. So I don't know. It takes a lot of work, like any other relationship.
Well, you guys left me out too, so.
I'm sorry, Josh.
But I wasn't brave enough.
You can come. I mean,
You weren't brave enough to let them know how jealous you were that you weren't included.
So Jim, what about your friend group? You got anything that looks like that? Like for the guys out there, I mean, I feel like this is
that's a hard.
Yeah, I mean, well, sure. I mean, I have old friends that we don't talk all the time, but it's those kind of old friendships where I could call up my buddy Mike Stone today and it'd be like, we haven't talked in months, but we just pick it right up because we're that close. But my story is very different in that I've moved around so much that my friendships and my friend groups, the ones that really lasted and mattered, that I suppose you'd say would make the cut, were always formed sort of out of necessity or common circumstance, and that's very common. That's just very common with people in the military. To whatever end of the spectrum, combat, not combat. I mean, I'm submarine and diving and that sort of stuff, so it's generally small unit type work that I've done, and there's not a lot of turnover. The groups that you are with, like you're good, bad, and different, whatever. You're with those people a lot, so you've figured it out pretty quick who you can count on and who you can't. And so, really, I mean, just through adversity and trials and just circumstance, even just the monotony and routine of military life, I've forged a lot of friendships over the years, and really a few good ones that I would consider the worthwhile ones. I still stay in contact with people and would bring things to them, but also really what I think of more so than anything is just the mentors that I've had over the years and the different seasons of life that I've lived. Gosh, I don't even know where to start, so I'm not going to. But there's a lot of them. I can identify at least one or two for each season of life that I had. Just awesome, godly men that spent time with me. as young and stupid as I was at whatever time in my life, and they still had such an impact on me to this day. So, yeah, I mean, I'm just a different kind of person just because I've jumped around so much. So I don't have that sort of consistent small group of people. In one sense, I wish I did, but I don't. So, but it's, yeah, I don't know. It's just different. I don't know if that answered your question so much as just from the guy's perspective, I suppose. It's
yeah. I mean, I think that probably it can be a little more challenging, and certainly even with those people that you might be friends with, there's probably a different level of like automatic vulnerability that just exists, right? Because I think men have. I can certainly say this for myself. I'm a very, very invulnerable person. I think
I would have never guessed this.
I know.
You, Josh.
It's like, hey,
shocked.
I have worked very, very hard at this hard to crack shell, that has formed over the years, and so it would be an incredible thing to like bring a person into my world that I think would have what I hear you describing, as this very kind of intimate, very very personal, like no secrets here kind of relationship. But that also, I mean, that's something that didn't form overnight either, right? I mean, that was years and years and years in the making, and so I think it's important for us to just realize that the people that we spend our time with, they are going to have an influence on us, for the good or the bad. Like they just are. And so I think my question is, with regard to that, is how do you measure the net, like positive or negative, that the people that you're spending the most time in your life with are actually having on you? Some people I'll talk to, and they just seem to ooze that they spend a lot of time around negative people.
Oh yeah.
Right. And you can see how it just has worn on them over a long period of time, and you wish that weren't so. But like, how do you measure that?
I feel like you did a really good job, Jim, on Sunday, honestly, though, talking about that, about just like the warnings of like what types of things happen when you're around someone that like isn't really good for you. And you kind of talked about it a little bit. I remember you saying like, hey, you finding yourself doing things maybe out of character for you to maybe please them, or just to try to fit in or whatever. That's a big red flag. Like that would be one. I would say that's one that I had experienced for a long time, just wanting to be liked by people. You do end up changing, a lot of things that this is not who I am, or you feel convicted, I know I shouldn't be doing this, but I'm gonna, you always can like find a reason as to why it's okay, right? That's a huge red flag. Like, get out
Yeah.
now.
And is it this that the alternative, the people that maybe will be influencing you for the better, are too boring? I mean, like, what is the, why is there this tendency sometimes to like gravitate toward, those things that are destructive to us?
Because like isn't there something?
I think it's more common.
Yeah.
So I think it's just easier to default find yourself in those situations to begin with. I mean, speaking specifically to, I lived from the age of 20 to 24 on the island of Guam, out in the Western Pacific, which is a very, very strange place. It's like Imagination Island, and
really?
So you're like 10,000 miles away from everything that you know, and I'm with all these other guys on a submarine with Navy culture. And so it's like your choices, like just by default, it's like, okay, here's a bunch of people just making dumb decisions night after night after night consistently.
Generally,
Generally, most of them good people just
You got to swim really, really far to find a wise person.
Yes, and so, but I did at one point. I did, and very quick, just illustration. He's a Navy SEAL at Special Warfare Unit 1 in Guam, and doesn't matter how we met, but his name is Steve. Really good dude.
Story later.
Really cool dude. Yeah, really cool dude, and he didn't. I had mentioned to him that I was a Christian when he was trying to getting to know me and feel me out. And I remember him just having the comment like, "You've got a lot of whatever for telling me that because you have no clue who I am, anything about me." And then, of course, he invites me to his house to meet his wife and all that, and we're like having a Bible study the next day and all this stuff. But talk about this dude. This dude's got crazy stories from Afghanistan, Iraq. I'm a 22-year-old kid who still wants to go do that crazy stuff. So this guy's like, man, this guy is so cool. And he's having me over to his house, having his friends over, and I'm getting around like just godly men. But we're still hanging out, being cool, doing cool stuff, going out in the jungle, climbing trees, like being weird, but like not the opposite end of the spectrum. But it was definitely like a Jesus thing that I ended up meeting this guy and getting into that group of friends out there because, and that was my point earlier. It's like, it's not as common. It's just not. And that's a very extreme example, Guam, and just being out there. But it's easy to fall in with groups of foolish people because it's much less common to have wise people just floating around that you bump into. So I mean, it's part of being prayerful and praying that God puts those people in our lives and that we be receptive to that.
Yeah. So how do we, assuming that like you are growing and living with this wealth of wisdom that you have now collected over time, how are you sharing that? We talk about how hard it is to form some of these relationships, right? And you've got your group of 4, right? Like, how do you make sure that, well, this isn't to be the group of 4 and no more, but at some point, it's time for me to be in that place of mentoring somebody else, of sharing, some of the things that I've learned. Does that just happen by accident, or is that something that we have to intentionally look out for as well?
I think both.
Yeah.
I think we have to be receptive to the opportunities, no matter where they are. I had brought up as an illustration my message that we have by default just so many opportunities to be around people who don't follow Jesus and make disciples. And we can choose to use those opportunities or not use those opportunities. So we don't really need to go looking for it in that respect, but absolutely we need to make ourselves available to people and even just be receptive to when we know somebody is looking for a mentor, and maybe just coming right out and say, hey, if you ever need any advice, if you ever want help with anything, like I've lived a bit of life, and just let them know that you're accessible, because it can be intimidating to when you're the younger person looking for a mentor, just knowing like, I've got a question for somebody, and it's a weird question. It can be intimidating to approach somebody. So just living that example that we're accessible to people is a big deal, at least in my opinion.
Yeah.
So you're almost 30, right?
Yeah.
But what are you really wise about? I want you to brag on Annie for a little bit, right? Like, if there's
That's like so uncomfortable to do. You know how uncomfortable
That's
is
great.
to like talk about yourself? I think
the whole goal of tonight was to make you feel uncomfortable at some point.
Oh, great!
So,
You succeeded.
yeah. So if you're
Excellent job.
sitting at a desk and there's a little sign over there and like a line's
Yeah.
forming, come talk to Annie about such and such. What is where's that area you feel like you have some wisdom that you could really, really help somebody?
I feel like I'm really, Shay, you can correct me if I'm wrong. I feel like I'm really good in relationships. Like, I really felt like for a long time, I just, like, God put on my heart that I didn't know this until more recently, but like that he just placed like, you're going to love people well. Like, that's why you're here. I don't know what that means, but I just like felt that and I've known that. So I feel like I'm just like good in relationships. Whether that's like a friend that's just like hurting and being like, let's pray, like, what can I do for you? How can I be there for you? Or it's like one of my sisters, that just needs advice about like a situation that they're experiencing or whatever. I think that that's kind of something that I've been really blessed with, like really gifted with, that I just feel like I feel equipped in a way. I don't know why, because I'm not really old. Like, you know what I mean? But I do feel like sometimes I'm just like, I feel the Holy Spirit, like in those moments when people ask, and I'm honored that like they ask me for advice. I'm like, oh, this means so much. But I just feel like that's kind of like maybe something that I'm supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, there's a girl in high school struggling,
Yeah.
just struggling.
There's
with
probably a couple.
relationships. Yeah. I mean, what do you do to help that person?
I feel like God gives you a lot of times. I have found in my own personal like relationships and experiences where someone has come to me for advice or whatnot. It's always so interesting how God really uses my life and what I've experienced previously. Like, I remember when I was doing like Young Life and youth group for a while and stuff. And Tyler and I have a really like interesting like dating story. And we got married really young. We were 19. We'll be married 10 years this year, and I'm only 29. So like that's kind of weird in 2021. And it was just really interesting. People like girls in youth group who were in dating relationships, like you could just sometimes see like, that was a struggle. Like there was a struggle in the relationship, or they felt like it wasn't right to be in it or whatever. I used to always get those girls come to me and be like, what should I do? And I always was like, oh, I love that God like equipped me in a way where I experienced that a little bit like firsthand. And I felt like, okay, this is hard. And I felt just more prepared to like walk with them, through that.
Yeah.
So
That's great. How about you, Jim? Yeah. Where are you really wise?
I don't know. No. I've been blessed with a lot of opportunities to mentor junior people in the military. So that's where a lot of, just by default, because that's where I've spent a lot of my time, just around the military culture, and shipyard in Erie more specifically. But just being around younger men and just being able to talk with them, or they come to me with questions, just career advice or anything else, and just being able to take an interest in them and show them like, hey, I care about what you're doing, tell me all about what you're doing, and building that rapport with them. And then being able to, when I see something like, hey, do this, don't do that, don't do what I did, is more commonly where it goes. Here's like 10 lessons I can just tell you that mistakes that I've made in regards to this issue. Don't do that, or whatever. So really just conversational and just relationship building and just sharing life experiences. I have always felt that as part of my story, that was always going to be something that God was going to be able to use as just this bizarro world, eclectic kind of collection of experiences and life experiences and work experiences and whatever else that I've had. And that's where I feel like I've been able to really help people out, or I guess impart a little bit of wisdom, just because I've done a lot, if that makes sense. Not like in a talking myself up kind of way, but just I've been through a lot.
Yeah, no,
of
that's what
experiences.
experience does, right? It just gives you a level of expertise in certain areas of your lives. And so if you walk through the halls of this school and have had to deal with all these various issues that go along with it, then, when the next person walks down the hall, maybe there's some stuff that you have to say. I guess the point of the question, and I'd love for people that are listening to just be thinking about this for themselves as well. Because often we're looking for, me personally, from a pastoral standpoint, it's like, I want people to live out, their fullest potential for what God has for them. And so I'd love for people to just think about, some of those areas of experience and expertise that they've grown in wisdom in over time, and like figure out how to leverage that.
Yeah.
Figure out how to use that. I love those opportunities when they come. Somebody is struggling with something, and it's just like it happens to be an area where I have a higher level of
You're like, I've
wisdom and expertise
or,
in.
yeah.
And it's like, man, you could speak into that with such confidence. Now, will they listen? Will they walk with the wise and become wise, or will they just kind of reject some of the wisdom that's there? You don't know. You can't control that. But boy, it's fulfilling, to actually have those opportunities where, my experiences can help maybe speak into the lives of somebody else. So
Yeah, and there's an amount of credibility that comes with that as well, because you're speaking from experience. You're not speaking from a sort of head knowledge or logic or whatever else it might be. Just the fact that you've walked in that space that they're now walking through. Not only is that advice, that wisdom going to be applicable and true if they choose to receive it, but they're should be more apt to receive it because you're more credible, because you're speaking from that place of experience.
right.
And I think too, like one of the biggest things, or at least I'm thinking about this now, and I'm thinking about the word wisdom, like teachability. We can't ever learn to be wise or to grow in wisdom if we're not teachable. Like there's just this level sometimes that I think we lack. It's like, put aside what you think you know for a second and like hear what that person that has experienced, or has walked through what you're walking through. Like, are you teachable? Because that'll help.
It will.
That'll help a bit.
Yeah.
In life.
Right. Yeah. If you're not, that's going to really get in the way. That's going to be an obstacle.
And you're never too old to be teachable.
That's true. In fact, I think
Right, Josh?
oftentimes the older you get, the more teachable you become.
Actually, that's true. You did talk about that.
I am growing dumber and dumber by the day. It's like I'm starting to realize more how little I did know.
That was the truth. I feel like did you say that like 2 weeks ago?
Probably, yeah.
I remember you saying that, and I was like, this is the realest thing I have heard a whole month, because I thought I knew everything when I was 16, and I'm just coming to find out the older I get, the less I know.
Yeah, it's true.
And that's slightly frightening.
Cool. Well, that's been great. We just have a few more minutes. Maybe we'll come back to this next week. But on our the video series that we're doing, Road Trip to Truth, this week's video, week 8, if you haven't watched that yet, just want to encourage you to go ahead and do that. It's talking about, long story short, it's just sort of some of the reliability of the Bible, right? Just trying to deal with some of the objections that people have toward the Bible in terms of its reliability. And so some of those interviews come out and people say, such things as, well, this thing that was written thousands of years ago. I mean, there's no way that we could possibly expect that what we're holding today, accurately represents what was even written back then. Forget about whether you even believe what was written, just the very fact of, the chain of custody, right? So it kind of speaks from a scholarly standpoint, how we can actually have some confidence that what was written 2,000 years ago, or 3,000 years ago even, that it is, again, believe it or not, right? That's a different issue, but at least what was written has been accurately transmitted, even through all these years. And so what we have today is an accurate representation of that. So it's talking about certain things like that. I just want to, for a few minutes, kind of explore the question of like, what have been, just personally, what maybe have been some of the challenges that you've had with regard to the Bible? I'll ask you guys, I'll ask the folks out there in internet land. What was that? A little cackling from the back room there.
This is like a big question for like.
I know.
Wow.
That's why I said we might have to come back to it.
All right, Josh, here we go.
yeah, so just kind of throw the bomb out there and see if it explodes. But what if it doesn't have to be challenges that you have had in the past that you've been able to figure out, but even today, there certainly I imagine are some, right?
Yeah.
Jim doesn't have any challenges. He's just like,
No, look at me. Obvious.
Okay.
Pretty obvious.
I'll say, I mean, I grew up in church, so I'm pretty familiar with the Bible. Not as familiar as I should be. Probably none of us really are. But I think for a long time, I always had like this question of like, well, does it really apply to today? Like, do some things really apply to today? And I think for a long time, I was always just like, right, you grow up in a household and your parents teach you things, and then, you become an adult and a young adult and you start to question, right, all the things. Mm-hmm. Like, is that actually true? Why is it true? I still feel like sometimes I'm going through, just within the last year, I have read more of the Bible in the last year to really discern truth in it. And boy, it's still there. Mm-hmm. And just like using, I don't know. That's really hard. And I think it's amazing to me.
what are you reading mostly?
What am I reading?
Yeah.
Numbers.
100% no.
Yeah.
It was actually funny because I recommended to one of my friends that was like, I really want to read the Bible again, but I don't know where to start. And I was like, start with the book of James. It's really short.
This particular friend needs a little help with
It's
some
a
of the
really
subjects.
easy read. No, and it was funny because I gave this advice being like, you should start there because that is a great book.
Very practical.
It's short. It's practical.
Yeah. Was it Shayna?
It's easy. No, it wasn't Shayna. And then I was like, well, I should take my own advice. Haven't read it in a really long time.
Cassandra just said, it's me.
Oh, it me, girl. And it was
Cassandra.
just funny because actually Pastor Rick was the one when we were doing marital counseling. He told us, he was like, well, he goes, James is my favorite book of the Bible. And I was like, okay, that's really weird. And then I went home after and I read it and I was like, well, now I know why. And so I just went back through and I read it and I was like, wow, this is so good. This is just as good when I read it the first time when I was like 10 and I didn't even really understand it. It's still true.
That wasn't really fair. Pastor Rick didn't struggle with any of the things that the book of James actually talks about. So naturally it was.
Well, I don't think that we can
She was like
say
the living
that.
epitome.
Okay, well, that's probably true, but maybe that's why it was his favorite.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I don't know. But it was, I don't know. It's a struggle. I think that though, like growing up in church, reading it, and then having your parents teach it to you, and then just taking this step back and being like, but what do I believe for me? Like, what do I believe in the Bible? And what does it say completely outside of what culture says? Because that's really hard. And it's messy. Like, that's hard to read. And read those truths. Those are hard truths to read. Those are not in alignment with what culture and society is telling us. That's a tough pill to swallow. But, like, I don't know. I find a lot of, like, comfort in it. Even though I don't like it always, I find a lot of comfort in being like, God's still good. Like, this is still true today in 2021. Yeah. So,
Jim, anything to add to that?
To add, no, I did think of one thing that
You did?
I've thought was interesting.
It's about time.
I don't think I really struggled with this per se, but when I first when I was a baby Christian, I kind of went through this phase just because of the Bible church that I was attending, and they were big on the King James version of the Bible, and just without getting too into the mechanics of all that, that's always been something fascinating to me, that within the church, just there's this, even with all the we understand how Bible translation works and the manuscript evidence works and everything, just the fact that there's still like this adherence to the King James version of the Bible as somehow being more accurate.
More holy.
Yes.
It sounds more
and I like it. I like the King James version of the Bible.
Yeah.
But
Thou shalt not.
No, it's just
James.
so, but just Bible translation. When I watched the video earlier and they're talking about the different versions of the Bible and the different translations, that's something that's always been interesting to me. I think that's fascinating, just how you can.
Jim's a fascinating guy.
I love that. You know who would actually find that incredible?
You just got kicked out of her friend group.
I was this close. I was this close.
You were so close, Jim.
you were
right there.
The whole interview process was going so great until
Until you talked about King
I
James.
think Bible translation
I love the
is
King James.
fascinating.
Yeah.
That actually sounds like something Tyler would say. That is Tyler 100%, which is why, like, God knew I needed him. Because, like, I just am like, but why? This is fun. Like, to you? He's like, yeah. This is so fascinating. He'll, like, read all of
Yeah.
I'm gonna stick to the NIV. Thank you. Thank you very much. I can read that.
That's great. So, all right. Well, I guess we'll break there and maybe pick up on this again next week. But Shayna, Bible translations are so fascinating, she said.
Also, Kana. Yeah.
I've got one vote into
She's
the
about to
friend
get
group.
kicked out too. So
That's okay.
Yeah.
We love you and your different.
You guys will have to go to your secret council and decide if I.
Jim, you're totally in. You totally made the cut. But
Nice.
please bring Mallory.
you can be Mallory's +1.
And Faith. I like her too.
She's pretty cool. Yeah, she's another one that I enjoy seeing in the hallways.
Yeah, she loves Bible translation.
I bet she does. So, all right. Well, with that, we got to stop. So, thank you so much for being here tonight. Hopefully, we can do it again sometime down the road. Get Tyler to babysit one more time, and
Oh yeah, for sure.
absolutely,
He'll be super stoked.
yeah, this is fun.
Oh, just
Shane is
say,
going to insist that next time she gets to
babysitting.
do
I'm
this.
sorry, that is not babysitting. That's watching your own children.
Oh, that's
That's
true.
called being a dad.
Oh, so
He's
you're
at
not-
home just being a dad.
You're not paying him $20 an hour.
100% no. Like he signed up for this business.
Yeah, that's a good point.
He's just at home being a great dad.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hopefully, we'll find out.
I mean, they're in bed. He better be being a good dad. He's probably watching UFC.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Well, thanks again for being here. Thank you to all of you joining us online tonight. We'll see you next Wednesday. Have a great week.